Alright, so it is the next day. I'm working on getting the wiring done. So I got my power and ground from my main harness cleaned up and wire loomed up and everything like that and taped up, and I also did this wire loom over top of this just to clean this up a little bit. This blue wire is my power. That's going to be key on power. So what I did is I went in, this car's got telephone prep and a whole bunch of other stuff, telephone and alarm prep and all that stuff. There's a wiring harness that is jammed up in this area, like wrapped up and tucked up, and it has a bunch of connectors in it. And what I did and what you are going to have to do is find something in this wiring harness, one of these wiring harnesses, that is key on 12 volts or key on battery power. In my car, there's a blue connector in this wiring harness that has a purple wire with a white stripe that is 12 volt or battery power with the key on. When you turn the key off, it goes to nothing, it goes to 0 volts. So it's an ignition source voltage, probably to turn on whatever module this was supposed to be plugged into. So I tapped into this wire. Now, I don't normally condone these types of wire taps, but I really don't want to mess up my factory wiring by like cutting and splicing a wire in. These actually work. I've done them numerous times and never had any problems with them, so I feel like they must work pretty decently if I've never had a problem with them. I put them in cars and had them in cars for years and never had them break connection or do anything crazy, so they seem to work okay. It's kind of a cheap way to splice into a wire, but it works. So I ran that wire, spliced into this. I'm gonna wrap this loom back up and shove it back up in there and just have this wire coming out of it going over to my control for my relay. So let's get that wired up. Alright, so I got everything wired up. Turn on leads wired up, power and ground hooked up with the battery over here. So let's go turn the key on and see if everything turns on like it's supposed to. So it'll kick on until the pressure in the tank gets up high enough that it's whatever this, so this input line here goes into this valve block and it's reading the pressure out of the tank. And once that valve block sees that the pressure is high enough in the tank to where it's acceptable to it, it'll shut the compressor off. It actually controls the relay for the compressor. So looks like we're all done for now. I'm gonna go shut this off, it's kind of noisy. And so all I've got left to do, it sounds to me like there's a little bit of a leak from the end of this line here too, so I'm gonna have to figure out, there's a Schrader valve in there, it probably needs a new Schrader valve. I gotta drill holes in the side of this spare tire wall to run the lines through that go to this, and then after I get that done, all that's left to do is put the air springs on. So the next video will probably be me drilling the holes through and running the wires that are the air hoses that I already have tucked up underneath the car into that compressor block. And then final process will be putting all the airbags and air struts in the front and seeing if everything works. So that's probably gonna be another day. It's obviously dark outside, so we're not going to be doing that today, but we'll cut to that in the next part.
Eventually.
What's up, guys? So finally getting back to doing this airbag install. I took probably about a week in between the last part of this video and now. I got sick. I wasn't able to work on the car. I was actually out of work for a couple days, so you know how it is. Sometimes just other things get in the way. I got one airbag installed. I just wanted to mess with it and see what was involved with it. If you buy a new Airlift kit for E46 sedan, coupe, station wagon, it will come with the nutsert that's supposed to go in the body here. If you look right here, there's a nutsert that I put in this. There's a hole in the top of this where the spring sits originally. Your new kit will come with the nutsert. I bought a used kit, so I actually had to order a nutsert kit. I ordered it from Amazon. I don't really remember exactly how much it is. I'll put a link in the video here, or link in the video here and a link at the bottom of the video to the kit that I bought. You can buy just a set of like 5 nutserts that you need. They were M10 by 1.5 nutserts, or rivnuts, whatever you want to call them. I decided to just buy that whole kit because I work on cars a lot, and you never know when I'm going to need another one, and it wasn't crazy expensive. One thing I did want to point out, let me see if I have it here. I don't have a rivnut tool. You can cheat using a regular bolt and a nut. I'm not going to go into detail about that because it's kind of hard to show on video. There's plenty of videos on the internet on how to use a riv nut with just a bolt and a nut. I will link to a video down below, and I'll try to put a link in the video as well to a video that I found on how to use just a bolt and a nut to do it. But I got the riv nut in on this side. I just got to finish putting the airbag in. There's actually, on the top side of the airbag, there's a stud that threads into that riv nut in the body to keep the bag in place, so that like when you hit a big bump or the suspension drops down, the airbag doesn't kick out of the car. There's also a plate here that goes on the bottom that goes up through the control arm. You have to take this, I'm gonna have to take this fitting off before I can take it off of there, but if you look on this side right here, you can actually see it right here, this red anodized piece. It goes up through. This is on here upside down technically. It gets flipped over the other way, and this collar, the shoulder part, actually goes through the arm of the control, through the hole in the control arm, and threads onto the body of this. And that is, in combination with the stud on the top, is to help keep the airbag bolted between the control arm and the body of the car. It's kind of weird because with a spring on the car, it doesn't have that stuff. But because this can get aired out so much, there'll be so little tension on the bag that there is a possibility that you could kick the bag out. So those are just insurance there. I'm gonna get this airbag mounted up. I have to run the lines for the rear airbags, and I'll show you where I route them and everything like that. And then the only thing left I have to do back here is I have to drill the holes in the bottom of in the side of my spare tire well to run my airlines in. And then we have to get my front struts mounted up, and we'll be ready to go, and I'll be able to test everything and make sure everything works. So let me get this other airbag mounted, and then I'll show you where I run the rear airlines. All right, and so instead of finishing up the airlines in the rear, I actually decided to do the air struts in the front, just because I had some extra line coiled up in the wheel well here, and I wanted to see if it was enough to run the airlines for the rear airbag, so I didn't have to pull more from the 100-foot spool I got, but it turns out it wasn't enough. So regardless, I still got the front air springs or air struts mounted up. I'm not going to go into too much detail on how to do struts in one of these. There's videos online on how to do struts in the front of a BMW, whether you're doing coilovers or just factory replace, whatever. There's a pinch bolt on this. Get this to where you can see what's going on. There's a pinch bolt right here. That's an 18. You undo that pinch bolt, you push the control arm, push at the top of the brake rotor, push the control arm down off of the body of the strut. When you push it down, you're gonna like kick the steering knuckle itself off to like the front or the back to get yourself the angle to get the strut out of there. And then up top, there's 3 13mm nuts. You undo those 3 13mm nuts and drop the factory strut out of there, and then the air strut went back in the same way. I put it in there, start the 13s, run them down tight, push the steering knuckle and brake rotor assembly back up onto that, push it up until it bottoms out, run the pinch bolt back in. Before you take the strut out, make sure that you're taking out the nut for the sway bar end link. It's a 16, and on the back of the sway bar end link, let me see if I can find the ones that I took off. There's like a collar. See how there's like a flat spot right here? That's also a 60mm wrench. There's like 2 flat spots on either side. It's a better way of looking at it right there. To hold this, because this is going to spin. This nut is like a oval nut. It's a lock nut. So you're going to need to hold this stud in order to get that nut off all the way. Now, if you're going to an air spring setup, if you're buying a brand new airlift set, it again has lowered, shorter stabilizer links, which are necessary in order to do the front airbags, because where the sway bar link is, if you lower the car with the factory sway bar links all the way down on the bags, it'll actually hit the lower control arm. So you have to put the shorter sway bar links, and it'll pull the sway bar itself up a little higher, so when you lower it out, it doesn't push it into the lower control arm. Your new airlift kit will come with those. I had to order mine after the fact. I ordered mine from UCS Tuning. There's like 3 or 4 different options on there. There's a couple different set length ones, and then there's fully adjustable ones as well. I'll put a link in the description to those, the versions that I have, as well as the other ones that they have available. So I got these front air struts mounted up. Obviously, it makes sense to make this leader hose off of this airbag follow the brake line, because the brake line has to do the same type of turning and up and down movements that the leader line would have to do in order to stay in place and not rub out on anything. So I ran that leader line along the brake line, and then just attached my brake or my airline to it there at the quick disconnect. And I did the same on the other side. Just followed the brake line, attached to my airline. Everything's tucked behind things so that it's not going to pop out and rub up against anything in here while the suspension's moving up and down. So we should be good. So let's get to mounting up finishing running the rear airlines. I got to drill my holes in my wheel well, and then we'll get the system operating. All right, so I got rear airbags in, rear airlines mounted up. Not really sure what to do with them, just because of the way this airline or air freighting comes through. It comes through on the bottom. This whole suspension moves up and down here, so I don't know if this is going to work out or not the way I have this attached to this brake line. I left the zip tie that's on that brake line a little loose so that the airline has the ability to move up and down, but I just use the zip tie to kind of keep it out this way so it doesn't get wrapped up in anything or touch anything else. So we'll see over time how that works out as far as like being able to move. I did the same with it over here on this side, and then I ran that airline up over top of the control arm. I attached it to the other airline coming from the front. It comes around the back. They're both zip tied up there to the top of the subframe, and then they both come down and go into the body of the car here. So I have gotten my my holes drilled here. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see this. Let me get a flashlight in here. You're not gonna be able to see that. This isn't working out very well. Sorry, guys. So I got my airlines here. I had these little rubber grommets that I ordered. Again, another thing from Amazon. I'll link those down in the description below. Just so that the airlines have something so where they're not rubbing out against the metal body of the car. They're actually sitting inside this rubber grommet. This is my exhaust line for my valve block to vent air out when you're when you want to lower the car. So I drilled those holes, ran those airlines through. They're run inside into the valve block. So now we got to air everything up and make sure that we have no leaks and everything works properly. So let's get it aired up.
The next day.
All right, guys, so it's a couple days later. It got late the other night when I was working on the car, and I just wanted to get home after I got everything up and running and figured it out. I'll link down below. There's actually a really good video on, I believe, Airlift's website on how to use this Airlift version 2 system that this car has. So I'm just gonna go over showing you how it works. Kind of brief real quick how it's supposed to work. So I have a couple leaks. I'm not gonna lie about it. I gotta figure those out. So the tank loses pressure while it sits, and the left driver's rear and the passenger front both lose air. The driver's rear loses air really fast. I'm pretty sure I figured out that it's the fitting on the bottom of the bag, but I ordered a new one and it'll be here in a couple days, so we're gonna try that when it comes in. So controller's pretty simple. As you can see, that's a preset level, and then when you click it and confirm it, it adjusts to that preset level. It says it's successful, and those are the actual readings in each bag. So there's 46 pounds in the left front, 45 in the right front, 77, 78 in the left rear, and 81 in the right rear. So I've got that set had a, close this door real quick, to where it's mostly flush. That was the goal I was going for with lowering it, was to get it to where the tires sit pretty well flush. I didn't want it to be like super low, just because the only reason why I'm lowering it is to get rid of my fender gap. I'm not a slam the car kind of person while you're driving it, because it leads to bad ride quality. I went with air ride on it simply because that helps it ride a little bit better, because it's a little bit softer ride. I don't know if you guys can hear. That's the compressor being on. I did a little messing around with how to mount it and stuff like that, to insulate it away from the body, to keep it from making more you know, noise. I'll show that to you guys right now. What I did, actually I want it to shut off. It's pretty loud once I get the trim and all that stuff off. So in order to keep it from making noise, I had a old pool noodle from a previous project around the house laying around, so I cut it up into like a 6-inch piece, and then cut it into quarters and laid this piece of wood down on it. That quieted it down a little bit, but it was still relatively loud, because even though this compressor has rubber like bushings on it, there's a brass insert inside of that bushing, and that brass insert's still getting pressed into this wood when you tighten these screws down, so it's still transmitting a lot of the vibrations through the wood, and then through the body of the car, through the lines here, stuff like that. That stuff kind of tends to vibrate. So what I did was I took 4 feet from a these are actually like the stick-on pads that you would stick on the bottom of like kitchen chairs, so they don't scratch up the floor of your kitchen. I bought a package of those and sandwiched those on either side, the top and bottom, to insulate the compressor from what it's being mounted to, with a little bit of softness. So as you can see, it's pretty quiet. I'm actually really happy with the result. If you guys have any questions, I'm gonna try to deal with figuring out leaks, and I'll answer questions in the comments on this video about where I found the leaks at and stuff like that, if anybody has any. If you have any questions about this whole entire process of me doing this airbag install and wiring and everything like that, please comment down below. Please like this video. It helps me know whether or not the content I'm providing to you guys is, you know, something that you want to watch, is good content. And then please subscribe to the channel, because there'll be a lot more this style stuff to this car, to the Mustang, you know, other projects and stuff around in the future. So appreciate you guys, and I'll see you later.